I have a confession to make. I have spent way too much brain power trying to decide whether my live stream setups, especially my mobile ones, should be wired or wireless. If you read the internet, you may think that if you set up your mobile live stream to be wireless, that it will never work, that it will always let you down, that your life will be meaningless if you even try. Yet, on the box for the Mevo Start, it says wireless live streaming. It's designed to be a wireless live streaming solution. And there are other options for wireless solutions as well. So let's look today at the difference between a wired setup and a wireless setup for your mobile live stream. Wiring a Mevo setup will include Ethernet. That's the way it's going to talk back and forth to either your control device or to a router that everything runs through. But the Mevo Start will not take an Ethernet cable natively. You have to have an Ethernet to USB-C adapter. If you want to connect your iPad to a Mevo Start, you would need a USB-C to Ethernet, then an Ethernet cable, and then an Ethernet to USB-C on the other end for the Mevo. You would be bookending an Ethernet cable with two USB-C to Ethernet adapters, and that works really well to secure the connection between your control device and your camera, and then you're just using a wireless signal either through Wi-Fi or through the cellular signal that's built in to your control device. It works really well. I've done it many, many times. If you're going to be adding more than one camera and you want to wire each of those, then yes, you do introduce a router to the mix, and it works very well. Adapters plus Ethernet cables will get you a wired Mevo setup. Works every time, so long as the internet connection that you're on works as well. It's just one of those things. If you're running Wi-Fi or you're running a cellular connection, you're always at the mercy of what that will give you. The town I live in, there are enough internet outages that whether it's Wi-Fi or wired, my internet may or may not work. I am much more reliable on the cellular end most of the time where I live. Now, wired webcam mode for the Mevo Start is one exception to this rule because you can run wired webcam from your Mevo Starts into a laptop via USB cable. It works really well for folks who are running OBS or vMix or some other piece of software that will allow them to live stream through a laptop. Good solution. Now, wiring a setup into the YoloBox Pro, if that's your option, is going to mean HDMI cables or USB cables because you can run any camera that has an HDMI output on it into the YoloBox Pro through one of its 3 HDMI inputs, and it's a very clean signal. It doesn't put any load back on the YoloBox Pro. It's a great solution. You can run any webcam or Mevo Start in wired webcam mode into the YoloBox Pro through its USB connection. If you want to run 2 webcams, more than one webcam, or more than one Mevo Start, you're going to need to invest in an adapter. Adapters should have been the theme of this video. I don't know. You're going to want to run an adapter. You're going to want to adapt the UVC signal. A webcam or Mevo in webcam mode is going to output through its USB-C cable or output port. UVC to HDMI converter. Now, I've been using one made by Tao, T-A-O. It's a generic one that I found on Amazon back a few months ago. It works really well. It does require power. All the ones that I've seen require power, so I usually just bring along a power bank to feed it enough power to get that HDMI signal out and into the YoloBox Pro. But I did notice folks over at OBSBot or OBSBot have come up with a UVC to HDMI adapter as well. And so my intention was to review and compare the two little boxes. I ordered the OBSBot version of it, got it in the mail, opened it up, and lo and behold, it looks to be the exact same thing that I already have. So the venting on the sides, identical. The input ports in the back, identical. The output ports on the front, identical. The sticker on the bottom is just a little bit different one to the other because of the branding. And of course, the top is also So my review, my advice to you, if you're going to get a UVC to HDMI connection, these two have the exact same specs. They're the exact same size. They have the exact same ports. They're probably made in the factory on the line next to each other, or when this crew goes on break, that crew makes these. So whichever one you can find a better deal on, buy that one. It's the same as the other one. There you go. But UVC to HDMI is a great solution to get a webcam or Mevo into your YOLOBox Pro if you're running a wired setup. And I'm going to admit to you, wired is more reliable. Now, that being said, wired HDMI is difficult. Because of the nature of those cables, it's hard to run HDMI cables a long way. As a matter of fact, you're limited to only about 50 feet before that signal is going to start to degrade from what I read. I'm not the expert there. So, wireless is oftentimes what will allow you to stretch that a little bit further. Now, I know 50 feet should be the limit for us setting up a wireless system, but if I'm going to prop up a router in front of me and let it do the heavy lifting, I don't mind running that 60, 70, 75 feet away from me as long as I'm above the crowd and line of sight. I can stretch that wireless connection a little further if I have my router doing the work for me. If I'm just connecting from my iPad to a Mevo, I don't want it near that far away on a wireless connection. I want it pretty close, as a matter of fact. But the YOLOBox Pro is going to give us 3 HDMI inputs and 1 USB input to allow us a good choice of cameras and camera shots when we set up a mobile live stream. Now, when it comes to wireless setups, which in fact are my favorite kind of setups, reliability or not, I'd much rather the cleanness, the ease of setup, the convenience of being able to do it entirely wireless. It is my preferred method. When it comes to wireless setups, the Mevo is natively wireless. It is designed to be set up as a wireless connection. Wiring a Mevo setup seems to be the afterthought, where wireless is actually the native process. So setting up a wireless Mevo is as simple as running your control device and setting up your Mevos in a close enough proximity that they can talk to one another and just press and go live. It works. It is what I've been doing for 4 or 5 years now, and I don't see any reason to get off of that unless at some point it proves me wrong. Wireless on the YOLOBox Pro is not native. It's designed to be a wired connection, but there are some workarounds to get wireless signal into the YOLOBox Pro, and that's where we bring in more adapters. Now, before we get to the adapters for YOLOBox Pro, I will say the ability to connect my Mevo Starts to my iPad wirelessly through NDI and then run my iPad signal wired into my YOLOBox Pro is a really good find. I'm hoping that YOLO Live will build into the YOLOBox Pro NDI access so that I can wirelessly begin to do that without the iPad. But until they do, we can run our signal into the iPad and from there into the YOLOBox Pro, and it works really remarkably well. It also gives us the ability to add more than just 4 cameras, because I can have 4 cameras attached to my iPad, cycle through them on my one output from the iPad to the input on the YOLOBox Pro, where I have 3 more cameras set up there. So I could have 7 cameras running into a YOLOBox Pro, even more than that if my network will handle it on the NDI side of it. So wireless into the YOLOBox requiring adapters. So there is such a thing as an HDMI wireless adapter. Hollyland makes a really good one. They have the 300 and the 400 version of that, and it's a 2-piece system that is going to send your HDMI signal from your HDMI enabled camera wirelessly to an HDMI receiver that's attached to your YOLOBox Pro, and then you have a 250, 300 foot line of sight distance, range to that Hollyland Mars 300 or 400, and it's going to let you really stretch out your wireless capabilities when running into your YOLO Box Pro. I don't know of anyone who would run 300 feet of cable to get a camera signal all the way back to a YOLO Box Pro. But with this Hollyland Mars system, you really could and be in great shape for live streaming from that much of a distance, which to me, I think football games would be the perfect time to set that up. To run a couple of cameras on the sidelines that are feeding into the YOLO box through wireless setups, and to have a camera or two in the press box also trained on the field would be a great mix of cameras on a mobile setup that was a combination of wired and wireless. And so what I come back to when I ask myself this question, should I set up wired or should I set up wireless? The answer is almost always yes. I should be running some of my devices wired. I should be running some of my devices wirelessly, because the compromise of reliability and stretching my limits or ease of use or the convenience of putting them in various places dictates the need to run some of them wirelessly. And when I set those up, some wired, some wireless, I seem to have the best quality stream that my viewers could ask for. Because if something does go wrong with one of my wireless cameras that's set up, I still have my wired cameras to fall back on, and I just use that until I can solve the problem out there.